Welcome to round two, part two, or whatever you want to call it. We are back with Will and hopefully Abby joins us and Lisa, but we'll go at it for as long as we can.
So like,
So we were talking about 28 days later, 28 weeks later, and 28 years later. Uh, in that horror genre, I mean, you can't really, like you said, you can't call them zombies because they're infected, you know, and they don't necessarily eat you. So if this was since this is an affected movie, it has also gone on to show that you can is not just people to people because it actually originated from a chimpanzee, a chimp, whatever you want to call it. Uh, what would be the worst case scenario of like being in this situation and your days are numbered? What would be the worst case scenario in your opinion?
uh, trying to figure out how you're going to make it, assuming you actually have that mentality that you want to survive. Because I mean, if you look at like Jim's parents in the first one, they ultimately just, I don't know if you can say that for YouTube, but they ultimately ended up taking their own lives.
Yeah,
Basically said whatever to our dearest Jim, we left you sleeping and now we're sleeping with you is what the note said or something along those lines. But just knowing and then realizing that there's no camaraderie around like among uninfected humans, I think would be the worst part about it.
no, yeah. So at the end, the way they left part one, it was kind of like a open end that, like, hey, maybe there is hope out there and stuff like that. In this kind of situation, they end up eventually the infected end up just dying off anyway. So would you stay sheltered in place and try to wait it out, or would you try to like find that safe haven if there is one?
I think that that's a subjective question because the nature of this infection, it's not like because I think the it was originally based off comics, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Or whatever it was. And in the comics, the way that this goes through, it doesn't mention any hint of there being an infection anywhere outside of England or Europe. And in the movie, they do mention it. Selena mentions it when they're there. I, I guess if we're going off what it was originally based off of, to say like the comics and say like, hey, you know, I would probably try to leave Europe if I possibly could. Um, how probable or possible that would be. I mean, Daryl did it in The Walking Dead. They did a whole
true.
spin. They did a whole spin-off series where he got in a boat and just, saw what happened. But I don't know. I don't the those two things not matching up. It was the same with what like in the Walking Dead comics they said that, basically there was no future of humanity. And they proved it by when Lori had the kid was a zombie, but that didn't happen in the actual show. So I think there is still hope in this that you can possibly survive.
Yeah. I don't know. So let's talk about the dynamic between Celine and Jim. When you are the roles were reversed. Normally, it's like the damsel in distress, but he's the one in distress.
Yep.
So when and by the way, I'm gonna agree with you. The Molotov cocktail scene was probably one of the best scenes. But when they first met each other, it wasn't that we're gonna protect you. It was if you can't keep up, we're gonna leave you behind. Uh, then as the movie went on, they got stronger and their connection became more, like, hey, this is my person and that's my person. Do you agree with the way that their relationship kind of formed and went?
Um, yeah, I mean, I do think that it was good for the actual storyline. I find it ironic that when at the very beginning of the movie, they go to Jim's parents' house, Mark gets infected, which was the other guy that was with them at the time before Selena killed him. Um, And Jim makes a comment to Selena and says something along the lines of, Selena says whatever. If it was you, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even hesitate. And then at the end of the movie, is he's gouging one of the military's people's eyes out. I don't remember his name, and I literally just watched the movie 2 hours ago. Um, he's gouging the guy's eyes out, and she comes up with the machete, and she's like, and he looks at her, doesn't say a word, and goes, "That was longer than a heartbeat." I think it plays really well into like their character development between the two of them.
Yeah.
Um, I do think they did a really good job with it. I think that they did a really good job of showing like their bond together and how all that ended up playing out in the first movie.
Oh yeah. Uh, I might be wrong in saying this and thinking this, but to me, it kind of seemed like so. Jim wakes up from his coma. He sees what's going on. Doesn't really know everything because he's been in a coma.
Yep.
Meets Celine. Then they meet the daughter and the father, and then the father gets unalived or whatever, infected. So to me, it was kind of like loss of family at the beginning, and toward the end and through the movie, it was like, well, we're picking up family members. Then it was kind of like at the end, the three of them were kind of like father, mother, daughter. Would you agree
Yep.
with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and I loved, well, maybe not loved, but the lack of empathy that the soldiers had after they literally killed Frank, Hannah's father,
Oh
right
yeah,
in front of her after he got infected was interesting to me. But yeah, they definitely developed like an actual like family connection between the three of them.
oh yeah. Uh, that whole end scene with the military and all the infected in the house and everything like that. Well, let's face it, it was just one infected in the house, and he started infecting everybody else. The turnaround rate of how quick it turned everybody, and then you had Jim coming back in and doing his thing. At one point, did you feel that like maybe it was going to come down to just Anna and Celine, or did you think that like they were all three going to somehow manage to be together at the end?
Um, I thought they were going to manage to be together, just because it was a movie. I do think that that was an extremely risky attempt to free them and, basically letting loose somebody who's carrying a virus that will instantly end your life is probably not the best way to go about things. However, yeah, I mean oh my God, my can almost just fell off my desk. Um, I did, yeah, I did.
Yeah. Uh, 28 weeks later. First off, I'm not a big fan of Jeremy Renner. Like, just not. To me, he's a one-dimensional actor. I mean, he plays the same role over and over, no matter who it is. Uh, I didn't like the fact that the military was like, just open fire, whoever it is, doesn't matter. I mean, to me, it's like, okay, you want to control it by chaos, you can't control it by chaos. And the like, just the inconsistencies of 28 weeks later made me like it less than the other one than 28 days later. Uh, like when Jeremy Renner gets out the car and he's pushing it. Why don't y'all just get out and run? You know?
Uh, I don't know. Like I said earlier, I have a lot of problems with 28 weeks later. I didn't like, outside of maybe the ending scene and then the cliffhanger that they left us on for the last 17 years. Um, as they're storming into Paris, but I didn't like the way that film was structured. I didn't like the direction that they took with any of the scenes outside of literally the opening scene showing the complete lack of empathy that um God, what was his name in the movie? Whatever. The main character had,
Yeah.
while he's literally watching his wife die.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I didn't like it. I thought that, the scene where he gets out and he like is pushing the car, I think it was a necessary thing because somebody needed to get that car started and they were either going to die from being set on fire or they were going to die from the gas. But the whole open fire at that point, because they let it get so out of hand, there was really no choice. Because what was the other alternative? They leave them locked in that room together or whatever, like in that basement, and then everybody in there just gets infected, and then what? They just bomb that area. So they really at that point it was just there was no saving it.
Uh, Funny enough, though, like my favorite scene of 28 Weeks Later was when the helicopter was chopping them down. That was a pretty good scene.
Yeah, I don't ever remember, but is the guy that's hanging on to the helicopter when that happens, he gets infected and dies, right? I mean,
Yeah,
he has to.
yeah,
I can't remember exactly. I mean, I just watched that movie this week when they announced 28 years later, but that that whole them getting out of the city and then them trying to get out and then Andy was the main character, but the kid or whatever, they know he's infected and then they're still going to take him because like that did destroy an already like full quarantine zone that you had anyway. So,
yeah. Nah. Hey, as a matter of fact, the helicopter pilot is the main guy in From.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's Boyle. Yeah.
yeah. You
Yeah.
know, and yeah. Well, I don't know. 28 Weeks Later, like you said, there's a lot of inconsistencies and just stuff that doesn't make sense. Uh, how would you like them to start 28 years later?
Well, you said in the last time that you thought it might be a prequel.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the direction it's going to go. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I think that they're going to take parts of what worked with 28 weeks later and parts of what worked with 28 days later and kind of combine them. I think that it's going to start off with, just an absolute bang. I think that it's going to be something along the lines of, hey, we're all held up on, this little island, even though we all know being in an island with one way in, one way out, it's not going to work. But what else are they going to do? I think someone's got to get infected, or it's going to be a flashback to something that happened in the past, or maybe someone's dreaming. It's going to be something along those lines because I think they are bringing Cillian Murphy back 100%.
yeah. Now, what I don't like is the misdirection of everyone thinking that that one zombie that's rising up or infected that's rising up
Yeah,
out of the that's not Killian Murphy.
no, it's not. I don't think that is. I don't. I
Yeah,
think that has zero chance of being him. But a lot of people are talking about it. Like I said, I've watched it over 2 dozen times already, and I can't get enough of it. And the next 7 months needs to go by a little bit faster.
wouldn't it be something if Killian Murphy's the one that's behind the mask?
Yeah, but I think that that is going to have more to do with like I don't know, like gangs or like cult or something. And I don't know if that's the direction they're going to take that character specifically, but you never know.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know. I think 28 days later is probably well, first off, you're right. It revolutionized that genre. Secondly, I think that it was more along the lines of we're going to attempt this and see how it goes. And now that it's gained the following that it has gained, I think now with 28 years later coming out, I think it's going to be setting off a whole new series. You know,
Well, I think they've already announced that there's going to be a sequel to 28 years later. And I don't think we're going to have to wait 20 years for it.
I hope not.
I don't like I think they've already announced it. I think they already like leaked the title of it or something, but then again, we've been getting fooled by 28 months later trailers for
Years.
ever. Yeah,
Yeah.
even what did that drop on Tuesday?
Yep.
Tuesday morning at like 3 a.m. or something like that. Even before then, there was 50 examples of fake trailers that have been posted on YouTube over the years. And they're
Uh,
taking scenes from uh HBO's The Last of Us and A Quiet Place, and they're just mixing them all together in World War Z for some reason. They're just mixing all of these different movies together and calling it the official trailer for 28
uh,
months later.
Yeah. Now, some of those movies and TV shows, though, I mean, how do they stand up to movies like this, like World War Z? Where would you put that against 28 Days Later?
Where would I put World War Z?
Yeah,
I think that World War Z was terrible, to be honest with you.
agreed.
Um, I mean, I think it was okay for what it was. I read that book in grade school. It was nothing like the book. I don't like the direction they took it. I think that there was better things they could have went. I don't think there's any comparison between those two, like
Oh
at
yeah.
all.
I actually got the book somewhere around here, but Max Brooks actually he wrote a good book. They directed a terrible movie, but
Yeah,
whatever.
oh yeah. Oh no, that movie was trash. That movie was not good.
Oh yeah. Uh, but I do you see similarities with 28 Days Later in other movies and movies that came out after 28 Days Later? Do you see like similarities that kind of like, okay, I see where you're going, but you're not quite hitting it?
Yeah, I think that World War Z, the concept of it, the way that they did it, was a good example of that. Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead, that was a good example of because that came out a couple years later. And arguably one of my favorite games that I have hundreds and hundreds of hours on was themed after that. I even read that their initial launch that they were trying to do for a game called Counter-Strike was that they were trying to do like a version of zombies, and then you had Call of Duty Zombies that's rising in popularity. But I think that there's a lot of different movies and games and other forms of media that really have taken onto that. I mean, is it Zack Snyder's done? He did that, and he did Netflix's Army of the Dead.
Yep.
I think that's what it was called, Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
But I think that he took a lot of inspiration from there. The Last of Us, I believe the video game kind of did because it was just, it was a similar type of situation, but it wasn't exactly the same. But I legitimately think that this like gave it like rejuvenated the like the zombie genre in general because even before then it was all everything that Romero did, everything else, it was all they were dead, they were slow. And I mean, Night of the Living Dead and all these different movies were incredible for the time when they were out there, but I think that anything past like 2002 took a lot of inspiration from that film.
Oh yeah. Uh, so the my favorite zombie movie of all time is always going to be Return of the Living Dead. They invented the running zombies and
Yep.
talking zombies. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
but I think that so with movies like Return of the Living Dead being straight zombie movies, and then 28 Days Later being infected zombies, whatever. At the end of the day, the humanity that are in these movies, especially 28 Days Later, the humanity that's left is like very little and has very little chance because you're either A, going to starve to death, B, become infected, or C, run into people who are going to want to take you out.
Yep.
So it's kind of like you learn to have to fight or flight, kind of like Andy in part two, that bastard, but whatever.
Yeah.
With 28 Days Later, to me, it seems like for every bad thing that happened, something good happened. So it's like they took away your hope, but they gave you a little bit of hope. And it was kind of like a tug of war back and forth. And the way they ended it with the three of them, and saying help and all this other stuff, to me, that kind of put forth what I would consider a downfall because you don't know who's in that plane.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't. And their previous experience with, you know, active military members was not great. So, you really don't. You don't know who else is in that plane. You don't know who's picking you up, and you don't know if they're actually going to help you.
Exactly. You know, but so we didn't really talk on 28 years later, the trailer and stuff like that. We touched on it a little bit, but in your perspective, what are your hopes? What do you think what are like your thoughts on what's going to happen and stuff like that? I mean, because I got my own opinions, but I want your opinions.
Um, I hope that it is a actual sequel to 28 Days Later. I hope they leave 28 Weeks Later as like a standalone thing, which I don't know if they've ever actually acknowledged that that was a standalone film or they're still trying to sell that off as a sequel. I would not even put those three movies like in a trilogy, but what do I hope happens? I honestly, I'll be happy with whatever it is as long as the movie doesn't suck. And
Yeah.
I don't think it will. They've had 17 years to get this right. They need to figure it out.
Oh yeah. What do you think of the guy who's playing Kraven the Hunter being one of the main stars in it?
I'm excited for it. I just the amount of excitement that I have for this movie is probably more than I've had for any other release that's come out in the last 10 years.
Dang.
And I don't even care who they cast in this movie. I
Yeah.
I remember going to get begging my mom to buy the first DVD. I remember buying the box set of, Days and Weeks Together. I remember my brother and I sitting in the basement watching this on our, using the PS2 as the DVD player. Like these are one of the first set of movies that I legitimately fell in love with.
Oh yeah.
And it kick-started my whole, you and I have talked before in the past how much I love movies about, you know, essentially the end of the world,
Yeah.
contagion, zombie, all that kind of stuff. This is what started it for me. I think it'd be very hard for them to mess this up.
Agreed.
I mean, they already have it's a niche market as it is, but the people that have wanted this film for so many years have wanted this film.
Oh yeah.
And if they kind of go the same direction they did with 28 Weeks Later, I don't think it'll be as successful. I think that people are still going to be happy with it. I'll be a little disappointed, but I'll be happy either way.
Yeah. I think uh I think with 28 days later and 28 years later, I think the iron kind of died down a little bit, like the flame went down. But in recent years, especially because of COVID, everyone started clamoring for movies like this again. And I think now is the time to kind of re-kickstart that genre, you know? And I think that if they deliver, I won't even say an A plus movie, if they deliver a movie that is B or higher, it's gonna do good. But I think it's gonna smash the weekend it comes out. It's gonna smash the like everywhere for the highest ranking profitable movie.
Oh, I believe so too. I mean, there's so many people that are going to want to see this film. There's
Yes.
so many like when it comes out. I said it last time, dude. The amount of money that I would pay to even see it one day earlier is ridiculous. Like it
Oh,
really is. Like what I would pay to go to a midnight showing of this film and watch it like without an entire theater full of people is it's crazy. But I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I just I want to see this so bad.
no, yeah. It's gonna be good. I think it doesn't say it, but yeah, it doesn't say how much it made, but I will tell you this much. I think
I think their budget for the first one, I don't know what the second one was. Their budget for the first one was like 8 million bucks and I think they ended up making like 80 on it.
yeah.
So, I mean, they 10x their money on what essentially looked like a bunch of film majors filming this.
Oh yeah. With the way they filmed part one and then 28 weeks and then 28 years, they filmed it different ways, which I think is going to kind of revitalize also just the way filmmaking is made.
Yep.
And I want to say that with 28 years, with all the updated technology we have right now, I believe, this is going to be the avatar of horror, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was never an Avatar fan, but I heard it was good. So, yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I I hope so.
uh,
Avatar was very, it was what, James Cameron's Avatar. I mean, it did incredible. Like
yeah.
everybody loved it. I could not stand to sit through watching blue people jump through trees for 3 hours. I never got into it, but I know a lot of people did. and I hope that the reaction is the same to this one as it was to that.
Oh yeah. Uh, I think that. Do you? All right. Here's a good question. Do you think Killian Murphy is going to have a big role in it, or do you think it's just going to be as a cameo,
I think it's going to be a minor role.
a minor role?
Yeah, I don't think that he's going to have like a main role. I mean, he might, he might. I
Yeah.
hope he does, but I think that he's gonna take a step back, and I think that this movie's more focusing on what came after Hannah, Selena, and Jim were rescued. Because
Oh yeah.
I'm assuming that they got rescued and that they went somewhere and that
Yeah.
they waited another couple months and the rest of the infected died down and something happened, right? Because the only plausible way that I saw this ever even leaving the continent of Europe was because initially when this first started happening and reports came out, other countries would have completely shut their borders down and just locked it off like they did with
Oh yeah.
Israel in World War Z. But I didn't foresee this ever actually getting to America because the incubation period of this disease was so short. I mean, it was a 15-second turnaround. Like you're
Yeah.
gonna know if somebody on your plane's infected. It's not the same as like a legitimate Ebola or rabies infection that can be, I mean, rabies can be dormant for years, and Ebola, it was a 2 to 14 day incubation period. So people can spread that disease without even knowing that they're sick. With this, it's you come in contact with the virus and that's it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So how exactly that gets to North America, I have no idea. The only way that I could see it happening is if like the Americans said, "Oh, we have to sample some blood," and then they sent some blood, and then somebody again accidentally got infected, like they did in England the first time.
Oh yeah. Uh, the incubation period. The only other movie I've seen where it acts so quick is Train to Busan.
Yeah, Train to Busan and World War Z are both very
Yeah.
fast acting because World War Z was like 10 seconds, Train to Busan was about the same,
Yeah.
along with obviously, I mean, obviously the second one, it's in the same universe,
Yeah.
but both of those were really quick, and then that's what I think kind of sets us apart from other conventional, zombie films. Is it like in The Walking Dead, any other zombie film, I mean, you have basically until you die. I mean, you could have hours, you could have days, you could get your stuff together. I don't know if you ever watched the show The Strain.
Yep.
Okay, so like even with that one, right? You know you're infected. You have a significant amount of time. It could be 24 to 48 hours before you're able to spread the disease to anybody else.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Uh oh, we got about 10 minutes left. Yeah. But I think that like I said, I think now is the time to actually capitalize on this. And again, I think that it's going to repopularize this genre. You know,
Yeah, I hope it does. I really
uh,
do.
I know. I can tell you one person who's probably not going to see it for a very long time. Craig. But no, it's. I think that the Teletubby thing. So when it says 28 years later, I think the Teletubby thing is at the beginning of the movie, and then it shows what happens with whatever happens, how it started, wherever it's there, and then goes forward 28 years, and that's where the guy who plays Craven the Hunter is now 28 years older. That's what I
Yeah,
think.
because it could very well be just like a dream or a flashback or something along the times when like the initial because everybody seemed relatively surprised in that room. So I mean that could have very well have just been like the opening scene. It's a flashback of like the initial infection.
Yeah, yeah. But Danny Boyle chooses like in my opinion, the perfect way to kind of like show light and dark. Because I mean, the kids are watching Teletubbies, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose.
Yep.
So to me, that's genius. That's just my opinion. But I think that with the way they start this one, if they started on a bang like they did the other two, they have to involve the children getting infected because that's the one thing they did not do. And part one or part two.
That is the one thing that I think most Western media refuses to do.
Yeah.
They refuse to show children being like succumbing to various different things. The Walking Dead did it with Sophia. I mean, every other thing, like you don't see kids in that vulnerable of an area where they're getting sick and they're facing their own mortality. It's one of the things that I think Japan does much better, or a lot of Asian stuff. I mean, Japan, China, Taiwan, a lot of the stuff that they produce they don't care.
Oh
They'll
yeah.
they'll they'll show that kind of stuff happening, but they don't show that. And I think what would start that off with like a real bang is watching every one of those kids get infected and start attacking each other. Because they'll
Oh yeah.
show infected kids. They
Oh
showed
yeah.
infected kids in the first one, like where Jim goes into the diner and then kills the kid. That the
Yeah.
only time in the movie somebody that's infected says something, but in the series, but yeah, they'll show it. They just won't show the initial gore that goes along with that starting.
Oh yeah. Well, to kind of go on a different spectrum real quick, now that I got you on the show, let's talk about a movie. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's
Oh, it's not the one. It's not the one I was thinking of because I know you don't own that one.
oh shit, where'd it go? Ah, fuck. It's in here somewhere. Let's talk about Sallow.
Salo?
Yeah.
Hold on. You want the
Yeah.
give me 1 second.
All right.
You're talking about this Salo, right?
Yes. Let's
Okay.
talk about that movie.
What do you want to talk about this one?
okay, so we got let's see. We got 5 minutes.
Okay.
So in 3 minutes, explain to the viewers who have not seen that movie what it is, how fucked up it is, and like why it exists.
Um so I will say that just to give a little pretext to this, there's a reason that the director was executed or murdered right after that film came out. Um It was messed up. It was set. It was supposed to be like a political thing, similar to the viewpoints that a Serbian film tries to take. It was supposed to be like they were talking about because it's Salo or the 120 Days of Sodom. They want to show the difference in classes when it comes to people in Italy in the mid 1950s. And basically, what happens is a lot of high-ranking officials in Italy kidnap all these boys and girls and they force them to basically be slaves. There's a lot of scenes of um, very. I'm trying to think of what I can and can't say right now. Um, there's a lot of. It's a
I'm
lot
gonna
of.
put parental discretion advice. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of scenes of rape, sexual violence, torture, um, obviously sodomy. It's very gross and it's very unnerving to actually watch. It's one of those movies that I might watch once or twice in my life, but I'm happy to say that I own it just because I like movies that really kind of push the edge. I mean, there are scenes when people are literally being raped. There are scenes when people are forced to eat human shit. There are scenes where people are getting their eyeballs taken out, that people are being hung, people are being it's not just there's a lot of, sex that's involved with it. It's not just heterosexual sex, it's homosexual sex. It's a lot. It is a lot. It's because it's not just the girls in that movie that are, victims of sexual violence. It's the boys that are there too. A lot of full frontal nudity. One of the biggest complaints with that movie was that they thought that a lot of the actors in that movie were underage. They weren't, obviously. I wouldn't own a copy of it if they were, but that was one of the biggest complaints because some of the actors and actresses in that movie do look very young.
Oh yeah. Uh, outside of myself, you're the only other person I know that owns it.
Yeah. Well, you should know I own it. You got it for me.
Yeah. I will say though, like that type of movie is in a league of its own, just for the simple fact because it's not your typical movie. I'll say it like that.
No, it's a special type of person that's willing to spend almost $100 on a copy of it.
Yes. Yes.
And it's literally just to say I have it. I can't even show you the inside pamphlet of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but it's definitely a movie. It's a movie that to be completely honest with you, I don't recommend to people when they ask about, like what kind of stuff do you have? What kind of movies do you like? Um Obviously I don't go searching for that type of stuff. It's just I like horror, I like movies that push the edge, and I like that kind of like adrenaline feeling that comes along with it.
uh, I do have that trilogy we were talking about.
You own it?
Yeah, it's in my storage. I'll go get it probably this weekend or next weekend, and yeah, we'll do a show on that one. It's called Vomit Slaughtered Dolls.
But
It's
so you did end up buying it.
Yeah, I found it at a better price.
Well,
And
you can get that movie for well you can stream that movie for free. I'm not going to tell you where to go to stream it because that one is also that is much worse. That is categorized as vomit gore.
oh yeah, way
And
worse.
it's much worse. I think it's significantly worse than Solo.
All right. All right, so we got about a minute left. Again, thanks for coming back on.
Of course.
Uh, I don't know. Maybe tomorrow we'll get Abby on and we'll do another one if you're down.
Okay.
Uh, don't know what time, but yeah, I'm gonna say it's been another good episode. And until next time, well, thanks for coming back on.
Of course.
Stay in NC-17.